Hi, I'm Mary Beth Wall,
And I'm Linda Smith.
and we are co-directors of the Widows Project. Hi, I'm Mary Beth Wall,
And I'm Linda Smith.
and we are co-directors of the Widows Project. And today we're going to talk with you about the subject of shock as it relates to grief.
I experienced shock when my husband passed away.
Yeah.
Even though he was sick for 2.5 years, when I walked out of the hospital, I was kind of starry eyed and wondering what just happened.
Yes.
I could not believe that earlier that day he was alive and breathing and lying in bed in the hospital, and then he wasn't breathing. And he had gone to be with Jesus. That shock then became sort of a numbness that overwhelmed me. I didn't have the same access to my feelings that I usually have. There's a definition here of numb. It says deprived of the power to feel, emotionally unresponsive, indifferent. It's hard when you are numb to respond appropriately to the stimuli around you, but that is very common when a person first loses a loved one.
In fact, I would think that it always happens. I don't know that I've ever met anybody that didn't have that feeling of shock and numbness at first. You know, when we've talked about the stages of grief being first, according to Kubler-Ross, being first the shock or numbness, and then anger, and then bargaining, and then depression being the most mature of the emotions, even though we hate it so much.
Yes.
It means you're feeling, and pretty soon you're going to move into what begins to be a new normal. But the shock is the very early
Yes.
stage. And I think often when I think of shock, the first thing that comes to my mind is somebody sitting at the side of the road that's just been in a car accident. If you've ever experienced something like that, which I have, but you think of somebody sitting on the ground next to this car accident, and a first responder comes with putting a blanket around them and just getting them out of the danger of the road.
Yeah.
You just have to do those survival things at first, and then after the person is secure and safe and begins to be a little bit oriented, then you can ask what happened.
Right.
But at first they can't even tell you. Another thing I think about with shock is what I've heard many people describe. In this numbness, they are not able to, it's not only an emotional numbness, but somehow it's a psychological numbness and a spiritual numbness.
Yes.
Now, nothing has changed in their relationship with God, before the event and after, right? It was just a moment of time. But because we are impacted spiritually, emotionally, psychologically by numbness, sometimes people will feel like, God, where are you? And even Jesus on the cross said, my God, why have you forsaken me? Now, theologically, did God forsake him? Some people say the Father God turned his back on Jesus, and we know that Jesus took the sin of the whole world on him. But the fact is, he couldn't feel God. And many people feel that God has abandoned them. And if we feel those types of desperate emotions, whatever it is, we know that we can always look to Jesus and understand that he's felt everything we've felt and more, because the Bible said he suffered more than any man. He was unrecognizable after having been beaten and crucified. So another thing that comes to mind with this shock is heart work. And we've talked many times on this Facebook Live about heart work, healing from the trauma of losing your loved one. That's what it's all about.
Yes.
So when a person is in shock and trauma, their feelings, even their thoughts, are too scary, and so they make them go away. Don't want to think about it. Go over there someplace, and their brain literally compartmentalizes those terrible, scary thoughts. Heart work helps to create a safe place so that we can then bring those scary thoughts into fellowship communion with the person who's helping you and with the intercessor, so that you're able to actually look at those thoughts again. And what it does, it creates new neurons in the brain, so the brain is able to look at it differently and actually begin feeling.
Yes.
Now, so in a sense, that numbness starts to go away. I'd like to talk about traumatic grief for a minute, and complicated grief. Now, it's normal to experience this numbness,
Right.
that we've talked about. That is completely normal. When a person feels that numbness for more than a year, that's when we call it complicated grief. When it feels like it just happened,
Yeah.
even though it's a year later, that is complicated grief. And now complicated grief can happen because of trauma. If that happens, we call that a portion of complicated grief, which is traumatic grief. But it can happen from other sources as well, like, for example, a traumatic childhood. So then you've had a traumatic childhood where you were abandoned, say, and now your loved one has, quote, abandoned you, even though they didn't
Right.
want to die.
Choose to
right?
do that.
Right? So this, and it can be, complicated grief can come from other sources, such as a previous predisposition to depression or anxiety. So
Or multiple losses.
multiple losses can hit hard.
Yes.
And so all of a sudden you're just trying to catch your balance, and here comes another one, right?
Right.
So that can cause numbness upon numbness. We were just talking to someone, I can't remember who it was, but someone was saying, I just don't feel anymore. I just don't feel. And they've had so many multiple losses that they've turned their emotions off. They don't dare. Excuse me.
Too scary.
Sometimes people just have to move forward in life. They've got to go to work. They've got kids that need to be fed, and so they tell their emotions, shut up, I'll get back to you later. And we encourage people like that to be kind to themselves, like they're being kind to their children or to their boss or whatever, but they need to be kind to themselves as well. So the question then is, how soon when someone is in shock or denial, how soon can they begin to participate with heart work? And I would say as soon as they're ready, for sure. As soon as they're looking for help, for sure, absolutely. But sometimes they may be running away from their emotions, and so they don't even know they're ready for heart work. So we can gently invite them to do heart work if we see that they could benefit from it.
Yes.
The other thing is that it's relative. For example, I mentioned earlier, when someone is first bereaved and they're sitting by the side of the road, so to speak, they can't even put two thoughts together, right?
Right.
So that would be too soon to do heart work. But when they begin to understand they're secure, they're going to make it, my loved one died, but I'm still alive,
Yes.
that's when they would be able to begin heart work, which really can then cause that numbness to go away. Now, numbness is a protection for us at first.
Absolutely.
It's an anesthetic that really keeps us from things that are too scary to think about. But we don't want that to go on forever, because that will prevent a person from moving forward in those stages of grief that we talked about. So yes, being numb, being in shock is completely normal. It's a gift from God
It is.
to protect us. But we don't want to just let that go unattended for a long period of time. We had a heart work training just last Saturday, and there was a woman there who's been through one of the worst traumas I've ever heard about. And she said, for her, the sooner the better would be good for heart work. And she is one that really has been numb for over a year. But we have done heart work with her, and it's relieved some of that numbness so that she's begun to move forward in her grief. So God bless you. If you have gone through this, you can relate to this feeling of being numb after a loss. Just know we at the Widows Project are here for you. Linda, would you just tell them a little about what the resources are that we can offer them?
We have Zoom classes for men and women. We have an in-person class for men and women. We have books. We have videos. What you want to do probably is go to our website, thewidowsproject.org, and just look around and press that play button.
Yeah. And we do have some videos for you there, just like this.
Yes.
To help you through your grief. Also, I just want to say, if there are those of you watching today, and maybe you've not been widowed, or maybe you have been, and you want to give to the ministry of the Widows Project, we run a very lean ministry, very, very tight ship, and you can be assured that every dollar that you donate to the Widows Project will go toward the ministry. So you can find on thewidowsproject.org a place where you can donate.
Press that button.
And we want to thank you in advance for partnering with us. It takes some who will pray, some who will go, some who will do, and some who will support those financially. God bless you.